All right, folks, here we go. Sorry about that. Little late coming on, but we're on. Yes, on this Tuesday. Let me just double check all the sound. Sorry about that, Gian. But yes, Gian says the audio is good. And I believe we have also, and we solved the problem with, it should be smooth from here on in. I want to thank Debbie for her patience. So we were able to correct the problem. Now I know exactly, I believe, with what happened, and so now we should be totally good. Hi there, Janet Dwyer. Yes. So again, folks, it's not easy when you're doing different platforms and we're navigating, and 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 then as I said, and it seems foolish now because it is foolish, but it was just a matter of well, it makes sense to me. We were clicking both portrait. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. We're good to go, and we're going to start in just 2 minutes. And I want to thank, yes, good afternoon, Brenda, and everyone that is tuning in for our live report from 1 to 2 each weekday. Is Governor McGreed having a press conference trying to capitalize on the government shutdown? No surprise there. So I'm not in favor of something like that. I don't think he should be trying to capitalize on that. But we're going to start off with this Smithfield situation. Unless, yeah, I don't want to. I mean, I could dip into the Governor McGreed, but I don't know. I just think he'll be the droning on a little bit, and we don't know. There's Jane Rice. Hi there, Jessica Perry. Yes, everybody. Yep. And there's Lynn Miller and one and all. Yes, hola, there's Jane Phillips and everybody. We're going to start in just a moment. Although I don't know if they have a plan. I don't know, quite frankly, if they have a plan on what they're going to do about these SNAP benefits. Hi there, Richard DeLuca. Hola. Um, I don't think they have, I don't think he's got a plan. So we could dip into that a little bit. We could dip into that just a little bit. We're going to be starting in just a moment. Let me find. I don't know what's going to see. A lot of this, so much of this could end up nothing happens. So, a lot of it could be for no reason that they're having all of these, press conference and so forth. But we're going to begin at 106 on this sunny Tuesday, windy Tuesday. Could be worse. You could be in Jamaica right about now. They're going to get really, really pummeled, but we're not. And I did see, by the way, I saw someone posted that their vacation was now thrown off because of the hurricane. Um, I don't know what to make of that. And then some of the people that have posted something like that, they're, getting pummeled online. So, but anyhow, let us begin and then we'll see. I just don't know how long Governor McKee was supposed to have a press conference last hour, and now apparently he's just starting. But I think so much of it is political posturing, and I will touch on that, but it's really not our focal point. But folks, this portion, there's Nicole. Hi there, Nicole. We haven't seen her in a while. She's so busy, so successful with her business. Yep. Folks, this portion of our program, and it's brought to you by PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. What a fantastic job they do. And more, number one, family run business. Number two, 7 days a week, they grind it. They do. They make it happen. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown, where right now, obviously, everything has to do with fall, and they have beautiful decorations, pumpkins, straw bales, corn stalks, gourds, Indian corn, Native vegetables are available. This is the ideal time for planting. And it's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Stop in and see them and say hello to my friends Steve and Debbie and Junior and Byron. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. And folks, I know a lot of people depend on getting notified that we're live. I don't, sometimes, most of the time it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, whatever reason. These are all apps. There's glitches. There's things that come into play and that you can't control many times. And so we try to balance through everything. But remember, and you see it scrolling, this portion of the program is brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. Remember, lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. What a fantastic job they do. And also, proud sponsors of DePietro.com. DePietro.com, our website, has had a really remarkable month as we continue to break different stories. Again, I design our website, DePietro.com. In my mind, it's almost a little bit like social media. Social media is not a long for me, for most people, it's not a long, in-depth read. So what we do on DePietro.com is it's a lot of links. It's a lot of links to video that we do, and then we do break stories. But even then, it's always short, condensed. My experience is, and I find this all the time, and that is that people just don't read as much as they used to, and they certainly don't read long stories. So we keep them short, and then we update them, but it serves a purpose. And it's DePietro.com, brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. Lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge, sometimes with Anthony Santos. They're waiting for you at the Coesit Inn. So we'll check in on Governor McGreed, exactly what he's saying. I'm just a little leery because I think a lot of politicians right now, elected officials, they're going to be doing a lot of posturing. Governor McKee was not going to do anything about this whole business about the SNAP benefits. And then Helena Folks put something out. And then suddenly Governor McKee jumps into action and says it's an emergency. And same thing with Governor Healy. So, but I don't hear anyone saying to Congressman Seth Magaziner or Congressman Gabe Amo, why don't you vote to open the government and then they can make these types of changes. So the Republicans can't do it on their own. But I want to touch on this Smithfield situation. I want to touch on what's going on in the schools right now. And a lot of people, I think, right now are recognizing that they need to be involved in the schools. Now, every time we talk about the schools, I hear people say, and I see people's comments of people saying, I homeschool my kids. And that's fine. But not everyone has the means to do that. Not everyone has the schedule that they can do that. And on top of that, not all the time, but the homeschooling definitely has a little bit of a stigma. It's one thing when they're young children, but as children get older, it is good that they socialize. I'm not going to debate those that want to homeschool their children for 12 years. I mean, that if you want to do that, that's totally up to you. But I think at some point, I enjoyed my time in elementary school. I enjoyed my time in high school at Bishop Hendrick and St. Paul's, respectively. But so some people, if people want to do that, that's entirely your choice. But there's so I know people just say, I homeschool, you should homeschool, but not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the schedule that can do that. And there's just a lot of different, dynamics to it that I think you got to find a happy medium. Obviously, finding the proper school is makes sense, but I believe more our public schools should be held accountable more. And that goes to the school committee people and the superintendent. And I also believe for those that say, I homeschool, everyone should homeschool, but you're paying tax money. The public school system, I agree, it's broken and it should be disbanded. It should be school choice. Should be school choice. To me, a little bit of those that just say automatically homeschool, but you're not addressing the problem because people still pay tremendous amount of taxes for these very expensive public schools. So to me, it doesn't address the issue. I think there should be a candidate that runs on school choice. But let's talk about what's going on in Smithfield, because I'm part of Rhode Island Coalition for Israel, and I don't blame them for being upset. What you saw is going on, and I do have it posted. The fact, like, it's frightening that there are actually adults in charge that are making these decisions. It's no profiles encouraged. I mean, it's certainly no profiles encouraged. But think of the mindset where the Smithfield Town Council School Committee, they canceled the meeting because a lot of people were interested in going. I want you to think about that just for a moment. As the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel, of which I've been a member now for over 10 years, as they stated, they canceled the meeting because so many people were going to show up for the public comment about the atrocious handling, anti-Semitic incident assault on a Jewish student. So Rhode Island Coalition for Israel, but I want to step back to the Smithfield Town Council. When they think of that for a minute. How many meetings do they have where most of the time people don't show up? Probably that's the norm. That's the norm. People, yeah, of course people should attend city council meetings. People should attend school committee meetings, town council meetings, city council, school committee, but most of the time they don't. But the Smithfield Town Council canceled the meeting. The idea would be to have a lot of people go to all the meetings. You don't cancel the meeting because there's interest in people in going. You want to talk about cowards, but I want to talk about what's going on in some of the comments. And I have pretty good sources in Smithfield. You know, we certainly showed people, they were surprised, the sources we had with Pontiganson. I have good sources in Smithfield. And the actions of this superintendent and the school committee, it's appalling. And this whole notion of, the Jews should have a better sense of humor. What is that supposed to mean? And some of the parents thought it was funny. I'm going to touch on that in just a moment. But this whole business, and I get it. I get a lot of people. First of all, folks, just to back up for a moment, there should be no school committee. It should all be lumped in. There should be no with the school committee and Jill, you understand? That's a scam. That is created by the teachers' unions because they found it's easier for them to manipulate a school committee. There should be no school committees, just so we all understand. And I think a lot of people don't know that, and you're probably surprised to hear that. But in reality, there should be no school committees. It should be part of your city council or town council. The school committees were put into existence by the teachers' unions to manipulate the schools. But there should be no school committee. It should all fall under town council or city council, just so we're clear. Now, but I'm going to touch on this situation with this student and what was done and the tone-deaf reaction to it. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Propane Plus. Now, remember, log onto their website, propaneplus.com, residential or commercial. You just log on, you'll see heating and cooling, residential, commercial. You can depend on Propane Plus for all your heating needs. 401-885-4209 or 508-252-3359 for Propane Plus. So I think I should say, the Boston Globe has a good story, I think, about this superintendent in Smithfield. And number one, I'll admit I am jaded because of some of the parents that I talked to, number one. And number two, I have a low threshold for people who they want to be in a position of authority until suddenly there's a controversy. And then what do? they cancel the meeting. They cancel the meeting because too many people were going to show up. I want you to just pause. I mean, that's a nonpartisan issue. And what do I mean by that? It shouldn't matter if you're a Republican or Democrat. If that is your inclination, somebody thought there's too many people coming, we better cancel the meeting. If that is your reaction, the fact that that actually made it out of a conference room and there were adults nodding their heads saying that's the right thing to do. We should cancel the meeting because this is a hot topic and too many people are going to come. That shows you their inclination is, it's like Seinfeld episode with George, the opposite. You know what that tells me? They should not be in a position of authority. That's what it tells me. Now, 2 Smithfield Town Council members called for the school superintendent, Dawn Bartz, to resign over her handling of the anti-Semitic hazing on the high school football team. On October 10th, the superintendent said several players on the team had been barred from participation for the rest of the season after a probe into the inappropriate conduct. But then last week, they appealed it, meaning, the students and their parents, most likely, that they appealed it. And then without even telling anyone, the seniors show up to the practice. So the student who was the subject of this suddenly is faced with, he obviously is the bad guy. But now I don't know much about this. I don't know a lot about this superintendent. And the fact that some of the town council people want her out, I don't know what this says. I did notice that they're not saying that the school committee people should resign. So I also understand many times in a situation like this, those that have an agenda will use it to go after, especially if there's anyone who gives the teachers union a hard time. But I want you to just look at this. For members of the school committee and for some of the parents to dismiss this, do you notice there's definitely, I'm sure it's nothing new, but there's definitely an attitude that we come across where people, whenever there's an incident in the school, that some parents, their inclination, their reaction is try to dismiss it as, kids are kids, right? Like who didn't do that type of thing, like that. Now let's talk about this. So for whatever reason, the players on the team thought it would be funny to target this young football player who's Jewish and play a game called Holocaust and put him in a locker and spraying him with Lysol, pretending it's what happened with places like Auschwitz and Treblinka in the death camps of Poland, where, during the Holocaust, Jews were gassed to death, and saying Jew germs and laughing. And for the adults involved to say, as one of the parents of one of the players said, when I first heard it, I thought it was funny. That's a problem. And then those are the people dictating that the kids should be able to go back and play. For a member of the school committee to say, these Jews need to get a better sense of humor. As the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel has said, what if, there's so many other scenarios you could play out, right? Let's say it was a player of color and they're going to play a slave game of some kind or whatever it may be. There's so many different scenarios that you could play out. But when they weighed in and said that they're not playing for the rest of the season, to not notify the student that was impacted, and then the way the student found out to go back to the practice, and then suddenly there they are. And what do you think the reaction was then? But I just have a problem with, and as someone that, I like to think I have a pretty good sense of humor. and can find humor in a lot of things. So I'm seeing right now, Valley Breeze Smithfield School Committee will consider review of controversial reinstatement of football players. Well, like what is that? Now you're playing catch up again. What are you talking about? How about some leadership? Make a decision. And hear me out. If your decision is that the kids are apologetic and they're going to somehow make amends, or if you come to that decision, then stick to the decision and then say, we feel strongly about this and we're willing to stand up at a school committee meeting and explain our reasons. And that's it. But now you have the back and forth. The school committee will potentially consider a review of the reinstatement of high school players who are carrying out a game they call Holocaust towards a fellow student. School committee chairperson Richard Anayatelli said there were the concerns. See, this guy should resign. I noticed the town councilors didn't say he should resign. They want to get rid of the superintendent. So admittedly, I don't know. School committee chairperson Richard Anayatelli. We're aware of concerns. We take it very seriously. We decided to cancel the meeting because too many people were going to show up. We're asking for the patience and civility. Well, but you missed the opportunity by reinstating the players. I like this. The school committee, whoever this is, Richard Anayatelli, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I like this line. The school committee remains committed to transparency, fairness, and accountability by canceling the meeting because too many people were going to show up. The 5 reinstated football players locked a Jewish freshman player in the bathroom locker, spraying Lysol on him, saying Jew germs, in playing a game they were calling Holocaust, where they put the deadly fumes, much like the Jews anticipated, in the showers in the 40s in Poland. In a memo, town manager Robert Seltzer said he and the town attorney believed the alleged hazing could lead to a lawsuit. 5 students were suspended for the incident, then reinstated last week with no explanation. The family of the football player involved had initially decided not to pursue legal action, has since hired an attorney, and an attorney advised them to file a police report. Representative for the American Jewish Committee, now I'm with the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel, talked about the horrific anti-Semitic hazing. I want to be very clear. I get it. Some kids, they say stupid things. They make stupid decisions. Some members of the town council have called on Superintendent Dawn Bartz and others to resign over the handling of the situation. I get that. But that's where adults are supposed to come in. That's where adults are supposed to come in. So, and I'm going to also talk about, folks, you see there's a trend that whoever was in, and I want to be very clear, because in these situations, I always hear from the people that say, well, it wasn't me, and I was the one that decided it, and blah, blah, blah. But what people need to understand is whoever made the decision to reinstate the players, if that's what they decided, if you're an adult and you're a position of authority, hear me out, and that's what you decided, we're going to reinstate them. And I get the whole, because they're seniors, because I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm just going down the reasoning of because they're seniors and because it was just a prank and, blah, 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 all of that. But if you come down that way, then to me, then you need to be able to stand up at a meeting and defend your decision, not hide, not cancel it, not say, these Jews need to have more of a sense of humor and try to poke fun and say, when I first heard it, I did think it was fun. There is nothing remotely funny about that. So I question the adults involved. Now, listen, as I've said, kids do stupid things. And every once in a while, we'll see, kids not knowing they do a swastika somewhere, or they do that type of thing, or something, akin to that. Kids, throw rocks and break windows. Like I said, the children are not as pathetic as it is, but they're almost not expected to always know. Like I said, it's when the adults have them in. But what is the Smithfield situation is to you reinstate the players. You don't notify the student that was impacted by it. And then when people are upset about the reinstatement, you hide. That you just can't get any more gutless than that. So, and I would go to, not everybody participated, for whatever reason, to say that's hazing. We can easily also say, where were the coaches? That's for those that say, oh, come on, all kids. We heard that 16-year-old was gunned down in Cranston. And some of the family members were coming on the feed saying, oh, come on, all kids stayed out. At 3:30 in the morning, and they're riding around with a gang member from Fall River who had a loaded weapon. No, not everyone did that. What are these people talking about? It's also kind of like the fights we're hearing about in Woonsocket. Some of the parents, oh, come on, all kids fight in school. Yeah, but you're driving your child to school, filming the fight, and then posting the video online. No, not everybody is doing that. Well, my daughter thought it'd be fun. Well, that's where you have to be the adult. That's where you have to be the adult. So that's what parenting is. And as far as the decision to reinstate, I don't know who was ultimately involved, but it should have been, just know that you have to stand up and defend this at a public meeting. Now, do you want to and if they say, we feel very strongly about reinstating the students, I'm not saying I agree with it, but ultimately it's their decision. Again, at the very least, you owe it to everyone to publicly be able to defend that decision. This is worse. And I also question, how is it that the student didn't know they were being, it's so easily that they were removed. And if that superintendent, this is also, if she didn't know, she needs to know. We are seeing schools that are letting down children and their parents. And if you live in Smithfield, you pay good money there. You pay taxes there. See, I just wonder, when do the parents get involved? I can't imagine being a parent and not being upset with all the fighting going on in the Woonsocket schools. But do you understand? They get millions, and they can't even keep control of the students. Embarrassing and pathetic. So, no, if kids are going to do that, I didn't say they should go to prison. I don't know if it's a hate crime. Potentially, I don't know. We'll find out with our legal expert coming up on Thursday. Now, I will give you an update on the Barringtons. The same thing with, the same thing in a way, different, admittedly different, but Pontiac. No one thought it was a little odd that the gym teacher seems a little handsy with some of the boys. The gym teacher is wearing a matching outfit to the prom. The gym teacher is dirty dancing with some of the male students. I don't understand the adults that see that and look. I'll tell you what it is. It's not that they don't see it. It's an attitude of, Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes. I see nothing. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to see anything. You are entitled to that, but not when you're in charge of children. When you are in charge and have authority, in a position of authority, when there are children involved, you can't be Sergeant Schultz. You can't see, I'm going to pretend I didn't see anything. I want to touch on that in a moment, folks. I want to remind you that Watson Materials Call Sean 401-885-0600, 401-885-0600. Watson Materials. This is the perfect time. Unlock your outdoor space, no matter the season. Watson Materials. Call Sean 401-885-0600. They have landscape lighting, pavers, retaining walls, natural stone, cobblestone. Watson Materials, 401-885-0600. Let me do one more, because I worked with someone who I have worked with people that took the attitude of what I call the Sergeant Schultz approach, and called position to be in. And I'll share it, and then I'll also have a Barrington update, as everyone's wondering, well, what's going to happen with that teacher in Barrington who was mocking the death of Charlie Kirk? And I'm going to touch on that. But folks, I want to remind you again, I'll give you an alternative to protecting children, and it's Kids Club on the Pike. Kids Club on the Pike. You're not going to, at Kids Club on the Pike, you're not going to have the drag queen story hour. Instead, this is a birthday party venue, before and after school care, preschool, half and full day program, preschool children ages 3 through 5. It's Kids Club on the Pike. Call them today. And again, call them. They're located right on 295. It's Kids Club on the Pike. And they're easy to get to. And the thing about it is they're right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnston line. 401-443-5336 for Kids Club on the Pike. I did work in a situation, and I won't get into too many specifics, but there was theft, and there was suspected theft, and there was felony type of theft. Now, again, admittedly, I was not in a position of authority, but I encountered someone who was in a position of authority. And when I was bringing up the fact that there was potentially theft, their attitude was, I don't hear anything. I don't want to see anything. I don't want to know anything about it. Now, obviously that's gutless, right? But the notion that you had a female, just to stay with Pontigansett for a moment, a female gym teacher dancing inappropriately all over, dirty dancing and grinding some of the male students at the prom, and some of the teachers that were there, their attitude was, and turning away laughing, saying, I don't see anything, I don't hear anything, I didn't see anything, and laughing and giggling. You're enabling. Now stay with Smithfield for a moment. This notion of that, if you are a teacher, a coach, member of the school committee, and you hear about this incident at Smithfield High School of, Holocaust game, they take the Jewish student and put him in a locker, and then they're spraying with Lysol and pretending it's the gas chambers of Auschwitz. If you're in a position of authority and you hear that and your reaction is to laugh, you do not belong in position of authority. And when people wonder, how do the kids get away with that? How would they get reinstated? It's the people who, again, they're adults. They're in a position of authority. And when they heard about that, they thought it was me. There are people like that. And I also understand people have different levels of humor. There are a lot of people that, there's a lot of people who, their idea of what constitutes humor is basically like, one above, like a knock-knock joke type of thing. Or there are some people, I worked with someone one time, for whatever reason, successful individual, good guy, but he thought any video that showed someone passing wind, flatulence, he would just laugh hysterically. As I think of it, it's not that that's funny. It was funny that he would go, oh, you got to see this video, and then we'll play it. I'd be like, all right, so that's okay. You mean, all right, so now you're going to like whoopee cushion humor. What are you, 13? Is this 7th grade? Like what? 5th grade even? Like just ridiculous. Anyone in a position of authority that is posting that type of thing is or anyone who is laughing at something like that should not be in a position of authority. No, I do want to touch on the situation in Barrington, but I also want to mention and stay on schedule. Folks, don't forget now, right now, we are hearing about this Category 5 hurricane that's about to slam into this hurricane Category 5 seem it's going to impact us in any way. But if in fact, just remember, if you have any type of fire damage or flood damage or smoke damage or mold, remember, Serve Pro of Providence. Serve Pro of Providence. Call them today, 401-941-5500. If you have fire damage, water damage, smoke, mold, Serve Pro of Providence. 401-941-5500. 401-941-5500. When disaster strikes, Serve Pro of Providence. They're fast, thorough, and professional. So if you have water damage or fire damage or smoke damage, they'll bring your property back. 401-941-5500 for Serve Pro of Providence. Now, what I understand is going on, much like Smithfield, much like a lot of districts, we have good sources. And there's 2 parents that I communicate with quite frequently. And I think they have been good. They've had good information on this teacher. Another example to me where when this teacher went on the rant where he was mocking and celebrating what happened to Charlie Kirk, that there were some people who, when they saw his TikToks, that they found them amusing or gave him a high five or were giving a thumbs up. And I want to step back for a moment. What did not get covered to me enough was that school committee, when they had that school committee meeting in Barrington, and the room was lined with the teachers union members, and they had them all wearing the same t-shirts. It's always the same playbook. And they preach solidarity. And they preach, what a great guy he is and freedom of speech and everything else. Now, I've now learned from some parents, as I have told you, there is an effort to try to bring him back. And he has been out on paid leave since the week after what happened with Charlie Kirk, and he posted those TikToks. But I've now heard that there are some teachers, not all, but some teachers in Barrington that are offering students extra credit if they'll continue their work to get a student petition to bring him back. Now, let's just talk about that for a moment. Now, number one, this business of he has freedom of speech, that's already been addressed. Of course he does. And to me, this is not a matter of freedom of speech. Does he have freedom of speech? Of course he does. However, you're also in the role of a teacher, and it's one of those professions that have a different level of accountability. And for those that are trying to defend him or encourage the students, they're trying to make it seem like it's organic. Look at these students, and they're all coming together, and they have a petition to bring him back. And all these kids, I got to hand it to them. And then we know it's disingenuous because behind the scenes, they're being encouraged to do that and even offered extra credit if they'll do that. But what we know is if you follow the element of freedom of speech, and this is a little bit of what we've talked about, we know that we're not talking about after school, a night or a weekend. I'm just going to give an example. He's at some kind of a family function or a personal function. He's with friends and he tells an off color joke. That's not this. The reason why they're trying to argue freedom of speech with this Barrington teacher is number one, because he's a member of the union. And number two, if he was doing videos where he was supporting the president or he was saying things that were, just the opposite of that political spectrum, well, then they would say he has to go. Where they know, I think, it's disingenuous, this whole business about freedom of speech, is they know as a teacher, or there are certain professions, as I said, if you're a teacher or a first responder or a doctor or a member of clergy, you're not going to be on video telling insensitive, derogatory racial jokes. You're not going to do that. They wouldn't allow that. This is chilling to teachers and their freedom of speech. So, in other words, and that stooge coach that was trying to defend them. So, in other words, they're trying to say that. So, if you're a teacher, would it be allowed if there was a police officer who was making videos that were insensitive and maybe making racial jokes of some kind? Pick whatever group you want. No. People would say no, that you don't want someone like that as a first responder of that nature. And if you stay with the role of a teacher. If you had a teacher who there's an open mic night and he goes up and starts doing very insensitive, gay jokes or something like that. No, people would say, oh, he's got to go. You can't have that. So the update with the Barrington teacher, it's pretty much as I had predicted. They're trying to wait for it to die down. And then on top of that, not only are they waiting for it to die down, the whole notion of trying to encourage students to make an effort to bring them back and under the guise of that it's all organic. That's what I find the most disingenuous. So now, the notion that he's going to be brought back, I want to be very clear. I'm not going to a protest. I'm not organizing a protest. I'm also not going. This is up to the people of Barrington. If the people of Barrington, if they are comfortable having an individual like that in their school, that is a choice of the people of Barrington. For whatever reason, they want to do that. If they've decided that they perfectly appropriate for him to wear a dress as he's teaching, there's a level of how much we're interested, and that goes to a different level. If that's how they want to live, if that's who they want to have teaching in their public schools, because one thing I'll say, the people of Barrington, they pay the salary of a teacher like that and so forth. So then that would be their choice and decision. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by J. Perry Paving. Free estimate, any project. Call J. Perry Paving today. You want to get on the list before the season ends. 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730. Letter J. It's J. Perry Paving. Why not right now get your driveway paved? Or on top of that, they have a great package for veterans. It's J. Perry Paving. Call them today, 401-732-1730, 401-732-1730, letter J, J. Perry Paving. High quality, fair pricing, exceptional service, J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. What is the latest? I get that. What is the latest regarding the gym teacher in Pontiac. State police are investigating. I don't know how long that's going to go on. You may not hear anything on that until 2026. They could investigate. It could go to a grand jury. Right now, all is quiet. Right now, a lot of times when we do these stories, I see people say, "Let the police." I like this part. Let the police do their job, as if by reporting on it, we're stopping the police from doing it. We're not stopping them from doing their job. It has no bearing on their investigation in any way. But Smithfield, if you live in Smithfield, there's a couple of things that I think are warranted to find out. And that is, who is it that made the decision to reinstate them? It's got to go to the superintendent. I'll put it this way. If the superintendent didn't make the decision to reinstate them, then the superintendent has even bigger problems, because then you have a complete breakdown of the chain of command. If that happened like that, that's number one. Number two, if you live in Smithfield, who made the decision? Who made the decision about canceling the meeting? I mean, that is just beyond the pale. Who is it that made that decision? And I'm not saying like I have the answer to that, but that's what needs to be fleshed out. The fact that right now you have a situation where the people are canceling meetings because a lot of people are going to show up, that is beyond the pale. That is something, whoever, and again, I want to be very clear, I don't know who made that decision. That's something within, but whoever is making these decisions, the fact they now have another investigation going. They have an investigation into who decided to reinstate, and then you have a situation not only to reinstate, but who is it that decided to cancel the meeting? So, and none of it is good, by the way. None of it is good. So, boy, the adults have, and I think it was the Providence Journal, the appeal what's causing the ruckus, said the school committee chair. The chairman of the school committee is shedding light how the district's moving forward. Jewish football player, blah, blah, blah. Condemned the school's district handling of the incident. School committee chair Richard Iannatelli provided limited comment. The committee can have an appellate role in some scenario. I mean, this is so embarrassing that these people are operating this way. Any student subject to such penalties have the right to appeal that punishment to the superintendent. Also, they can appeal the superintendent's actual appeal decision to the school committee. Iannetti said staff had conducted an investigation. The superintendent meted out some punishment. Students were allowed to play after appealing the superintendent punishment. If the case involving the 5 students acknowledged the superintendent's appeal decision resulted in the change to their playing status. The appeal is what's causing the ruckus. And now I'm pretty certain it's all done. He does not expect the students to appeal to the school committee, but he needs to be careful about staying impartial like a jury. School committee plans meeting for November 3rd. Well, they canceled the one for tonight because so many people are going to be involved. So it does come down to the superintendent. So the superintendent needs to go in front of everyone and explain why she took the appeal. How about this? Governor McKee and the Education Commissioner released a joint statement. See, I hate this. Calling for a thorough investigation in the incident. That was already supposed to be done. Acts of hazing and anti-Semitism will never be tolerated in Rhode Island. Well, apparently it is tolerated. That's not true. This is a statement from Governor McKee and the Education Commissioner. Well, no. It is tolerated. It's tolerated at Smithfield High School. What are you talking about? What do you mean it's never going to be tolerated? It is being tolerated. conduct a thorough investigation. Well, a thorough investigation. Well, what was done that initially said that those 5 players couldn't play anymore? This is just, again, I'm not, it is just preposterous. Oh, let me see this. I'm angry, but I also see these are kids, and there's a teachable moment. Joyce Katzberg. I don't agree with people calling for expulsion or responding with outright hate and threats. Do people want to completely ruin their young lives or help them evolve? They're young. I say no football, no extras, but keep them in school. Well, I love people like this. No one's saying that they should be kicked out. As a matter of fact, Joyce Katzberg, no one is saying that they're not in school. They're just saying that they can't be on the football team. I love these people. Well, I don't want to say love. Why do people go into scenarios that are not even present here? So whoever Joyce Katzberg is, it's wrong to expel these kids. Well, who's talking about expelling them? You could go through a litany of things that isn't wrong. It's not about that. It's whether or not they finish playing the season. I want to be very clear. These kids should not be expelled. Well, that's not even on the table, Joyce Katzberg. Like people like that, that's of no, there's no benefit to that. It's the superintendent decided to let them play for whatever reason. And on top of that, not only decided to let them play, never notified the student that was involved that they were going to be back. So really, really pathetic. Well, as far as New York race, there's a poll out right now that Mondami is at 44%. Cuomo is at 34%. So Zoran Mondami, 44%. Andrew Cuomo, 34%. Curtis Sliwa, 11%. If Curtis left the race, pretty good chance Cuomo could pick up those votes. So I know Curtis. Curtis, my man, New Yorkers vote Curtis, save New York. Well, not if he's got 11%. He's not saving anything. He's not saving anything. I'm sure he has internal polls. I don't think he is leading the race. But him in the race is going to, people are suggesting to expel them in many Smithfield sites. I see. Well, but that horse has left the barn. That horse has left the barn. I mean, I have not heard that they are being expelled. See, that's what people start. The penalty was they can't continue to play football. When people start going into also being expelled, not only are they not being expelled, they're allowing them to play football again. Or maybe they did this past weekend. I think I'll just say this, and thank you, Rebecca. People need to stay focused on this is what I call, you stay focused on what the options are. What are the real options? And it sounds like the options were either they're suspended from playing football, or you're going to let them back. They missed a couple games, and they're no longer suspended from playing football. When people start to go down a different path, to me, that's what I call when people, you're ordering, you have to order on what's on the menu. You have to order what's on the menu. That doesn't sound like that was even proposed. The options were, do they get to play or do they not get to play? Those are the options. That's what's on the menu. Right? Hot dog, hamburger. Well, I want them expelled from school. That's not what they're looking at. That's not. Why don't we? I would say this for the parents. Why don't you first focus on whether or not they should be allowed to play? The superintendent is saying they should be allowed to play. Listen, if they're allowed to play, it's not as if they're suspended from school or expelled, but they are going to be allowed to play. No, she decided, the superintendent allowed, they can play. So stick with the options are. If you want to get into they should be expelled, that's another conversation. But that's not the conversation being had right now. That's not the conversation that they're having right now. All right, I want to remind you, and again, clock ticking on. See, it is a challenge, admittedly. It is a challenge when people just take social media, if that's where it is, on Smithfield sites. I want them, people to expel them. Well, that's a lot. That's not what they're talking about. And I'm not saying that. Rebecca's saying that. But that's not what anybody is talking about. They played last week. Yes. Well, because they were reinstated. They were reinstated. So, and I want to repeat what I think is very, very weak is number one, superintendent voted or agreed or decided to reinstate them. That's number one. That she, not only did she decide, but they didn't tell the student involved who was caught off guard walking in the locker room. That should not have happened. That's number one. And then number two, canceling the meeting. Hey, folks, don't forget, get on the list to get your garage epoxied. They epoxy garages and patios, decorative concrete flooring. It's quality asphalt seal coating, 401-283-9815, 401-283-9815. Quality asphalt seal coating makes a huge difference for your garage. Call for a free quote, quality asphalt seal coating. All right, if you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Again, you got to go on the menu. The menu is saying, should they be allowed to play or not allowed to play? Those are the options. All right, folks, enjoy this Tuesday.